Top 10, I got a top 10. Got my motivation high for my top 10. Gotta learn from the wise women and men. All my life, like na 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 na. For my top 10, top 10, top 10, na na na. This one's for my top 10.
There are those of us that are born with this sort of thing in us. I write about it in my book because I had to reflect on sort of how did I get here? What were the things in my life that made the difference? And some of it was that I was temperamentally always that kid, always that I'll show you. You give me a challenge, I'll prove you wrong. So people are born with a temperament that, and that's that internal hunger that I'm talking about. And that imagine having a girl like that somewhere in the world who doesn't get to exercise that, where that feeling, that temperament isn't nurtured. For me, it was nurtured, and it started simply with parents who believed in my voice. And I share that with people because my parents weren't wealthy. They were not well connected. They didn't go to college themselves. We were not. We were a poor family. But what they gave me was a sense of belief that my voice, the words that came out of my mouth were clever and interesting, and they were interested in it. So when you start with a foundation where you're telling a kid very early on that they are valuable, that those words in and of themselves can make a difference. It isn't magic. It isn't money. It isn't resources. And that's what some families miss. There are families who believe that if I can't give my kids stuff, then I should just be quiet and let them be. Well, no, the truth is that teaching an individual early on how to use their voice and that their voice matters allows them to then be advocates for themselves as they go along.
Michelle Obama's book, Becoming. I know everybody in here has it. It wasn't just the best-selling memoir book of the year. It's the best-selling memoir of all times. And what that says to me, I think it's like now 11.7 million, probably 12 since we've been sitting here, million. What it says to me is that it's such an extraordinary time to be a strong, confident, assured, and above all else, well woman in the world today.
Absolutely. I mean, so many people saw themselves in my story. It's also a time for owning our stories. And I think that's part of what resonated with people.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people came up and said, well, you were so vulnerable. Was it hard for you to tell your story, to tell your truth? There were things you covered that were difficult, like trouble in your marriage and trouble getting pregnant. Was that hard to do? And my response is, no, that's my story. I embrace every aspect of who I am because, as I've said, I like my story. I like all the highs and lows and the bumps in between.
Yeah.
And I think that, what we learn from that is people they gravitate to other people's vulnerabilities. Mm-hmm. We gravitate to one another when we see the best and the worst in ourselves because it makes us feel human.
We were talking with some of those young women about confidence.
Yeah.
And I think you said something like, don't let the haters get to you, the doubters.
Yeah.
We live in a world where there's people that want to hate. Whether they do it online from their basement or wherever it is. Does that stuff ever get to you?
You practice not letting it get to you. You have to develop protective tools for yourself. And I tell young people, first of all, don't read it. Don't go into that sphere and take in that energy because that energy isn't even the full reflection of who we are as a people. One of the things I say that it's harder to hate up close. Social media creates a distance that allows people to say things that they probably don't even mean. So why take that in? Why breathe that air? Why drink that juice when there's so many other things that you can focus on? So over the span of my lifetime. It wasn't just the 8 years in the White House, but over the span of a full career and being a mother and all the worries that come with that, and having a solid marriage, you have to learn how to protect yourself emotionally and how to do the things that keep you feeling whole. And so I apply those whenever I can.
What are those things that keep you feeling whole?
Surrounding myself by positive energy, because for every hater out there, there are 10 other people who are there ready to give you an attaboy. So why don't we listen to those few naysayers and not let the real, true positive energy in? So I learned to do that. I surrounded myself with people who support me, who remind me of my strengths, who build up my confidence.
Before we move to the next slide, I did want to ask you about one aspect of your family that truly is an example of how character building and cohesiveness and planning and discipline are part of many, many African American families. And that has to do with how you would end up going every place early. I loved the story of that and how and why you did that.
Well, again, it gets back to my dad, right? Because he was infirm, he wanted to make sure that he was never the reason why we would be late for anything. Yeah. And he would always be the first one ready. And me, who absolutely adored my dad, I would be the second person ready. And it got to a point where if we had to be somewhere at 5 and it took us a half an hour to get there, he would be ready at 4 so we could be ready to go at 4:30. But then he would start to say, once he got ready at 4, "Are you guys ready?" to my mom and my sister. And they'd be like, "No, you said we're leaving at 4:30. And he would continually back the time up. But that's just an aside. But we spent a lot of time getting places early. And just like this morning, we stayed together at the hotel, and they told me to be ready at 9:25. I was there at 9:10, 9:15.
And that's on time for us. So
And she wasn't ready.
I didn't have to be ready until 9:45. See, these are the conversations that we have that are a result of having a father, where time was important. See, I don't do anything late. I think 8 years in the White House, my staff will tell you, with Tina's chin is over there laughing. It's like, we do not do late. And I have a husband who learned better about that.
He's on Hawaii time.
It's like,
Hawaii time.
dude, you are just starting to get ready and we're leaving at 4:30. It's like, so, that all comes from my father, because being on time was a reflection of control for him. When you're walking with a disability, this was before the ADA, this was before there were access ramps and things like that. You imagine my father thinking when he's going to one of Craig's games, where am I going to park? How far do I have to walk? Where am I going to sit? Will I have to climb up the bleachers? But if I get there early, because he was going to be at every game. He was the dad at everything. He was driving other kids from the West Side to league games, because all the kids who didn't have parents could count on my dad to be at every practice that he could if he wasn't on a shift. So he knew every gym. He knew every parking space. We didn't see it as that. I think when we were younger, it was just, Dad, come on, chill out, But now in hindsight, we realize that his disability, because he didn't want to be the excuse for us to miss out or to not have something because of something he couldn't do. So he accommodated for us and taught us the importance of respect for other people's time, respect for other people's abilities. It doesn't matter that you're First Lady of the United States. If you've got a room full of people waiting for you and you told them you were going to start at 7, well, doggone it, their time means something. Who knows what it took for them to get to that space, to get in those chairs.
One of the things that you have now become famous forever for is that when they go low, we go high.
And that ain't always easy, y'all.
And it's not always easy. And what I wanted to ask you, that in this climate where low has taken new lows, how do you maintain a high and not appear to be passive and not lose your equilibrium? Because low is going lower.
Yeah.
Yes.
Well, because going low is easy, which is why people go to it. It's easy to go low. It's easy to lead by fear. It's easy to be divisive. It's easy to make people feel afraid. That's the easy thing, and it's also the short-term thing. And for me, what I learned from my husband, what I learned in 8 years at the White House is that this life, this world, our responsibility in it is so much bigger than us.
Right.
So what I have to keep in mind is usually when I want to go low, it's all about my own ego. It's not about solving anything. It's not about fixing anything. It's about seeking revenge on the thing that happened to you.
Yeah.
And when you, as Oprah, you talk about purpose
Yes.
and what it's all about. And my purpose on this planet is not to just take care of my own little ego. There is a bigger purpose for me out there. So when I respond to something, I have to think about that light I'm trying to shine. What role model am I trying to be? What are the words that I'm going to say, and how will it affect young people who are looking at me? That's the bigger picture that puts you in a position to think high. Because if you're thinking about the long term, you don't take the short term measure of getting even with somebody right here and now today, because it makes you feel good in the moment. If it's not going to fix a problem, if it's not going to move the needle, then you're not going high. You're just being selfish.
One of the things
We drop our guards and we let ourselves become vulnerable. And that vulnerability allows us to share our true stories with each other. Not the stuff on the surface, but the things that really connect us, like how we were raised, the values that we learned around the dinner table, the people who impacted us in our lives, the things that made us scared, the things that gave us courage. That when we share that truth, we can see ourselves in each other a little bit better.
No matter
who
you are.
Your dad is someone that you take the politics out of it. And I had an opportunity to sit by your father at funerals, the highs and the lows, and we shared stories about our kids and about our parents. Our values are the same. We disagree on policy, but we don't disagree on humanity. We don't disagree about love and compassion. I think that's true for all of us. It's just that we get lost in our fear of what's different. So yeah, we've got to work on that. But I think that this generation coming up, I think they know more than we did. Each generation knows a little bit more. While one can argue that social media is problematic, it's also opening young people up to new ideas, to each other, to other parts of the world. My hope is that they will be more open-minded and more secure in who they are so that they can welcome other people's stories into the mix. But it has to begin with us being willing to be vulnerable and share who we really are with our neighbors so that we're not strangers to each other. And that way we can't let somebody else from the outside tear us apart because we know each other, right? I know you, I've seen you, we broke bread together, I may not agree with you, but I like you, you are my neighbor. That takes work and commitment.
What's the best advice do you think you've given your daughters?
Oh, gosh, I give them so much advice. They're so sick of me. Now that they're in college, I have these texting. Did I tell you to remember little things like you are eating some green things, aren't you?
But what is the thing that over the years was a running theme in your house that you said over and over? That
What I tell them is what I continue to tell themselves is that they have to walk their own walk. They cannot define themselves by looking at each other or looking at me or their dad. They have to take the time to get to know themselves, give themselves a moment to figure out who they want to be in the world, not who they think I want them to be, not what the rest of the world says about them, but to really think about how they want to shape their lives and how they want to move in this world. So I don't want them measuring themselves by external influences. And for young girls, that is hard to do.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
that is a very hard thing to do, and everybody should understand that as a responsibility. It's Instagram
hard.
culture. It drives me crazy.
It was hard with just cable TV when you're watching all the images in music videos. It's, I don't know, exponentially difficult with social media when you're comparing yourself to everybody on social media.
Yeah. So I constantly have to remind them that they have to live in their own skin. And that takes time too. And I try to make sure they understand that unfolding of understanding who you are, it is a journey of becoming. You don't know it all in your 20s.
You asked the question, is it necessary to have a hero, a role model? And yeah, I think yes, absolutely. The thing we get wrong is who that role model should be. You know, we always think, when we say role model, well, it's got to be somebody famous. It's got to be Julia Roberts or Michelle Obama. You know, but the truth is, as Julia pointed out, the heroes, the role models that have the greatest impact are the people that are surrounding children right there. You know, it's not the president of the United States. It's your mom. It's your neighbor. It's that teacher. And so in that, with that view of what role models are, I think all people do have them if they value who they have in their lives. You know, everybody has somebody that they can look to. But if we devalue some of that positive input because we don't think that they're important, then we miss out on who our role model is. You know, we're missing the person in our lives that is giving us that encouragement.
This is locked. What's so special about this stuff?
You might break it.
How do you,
I didn't realize it got so, let's see. It doesn't make a noise. Hello? Yeah. Hello? We need help on aisle 2. Customer service on aisle 2. Hi, good, hi. How are you? It's nice to see you.
Hi, Ellen.
You know what, Sasha needed some earphones. I'm gonna get some for her. How much are these? I'm just picking up stuff. What are you doing?
I'm just scratching your back.
I'm trying to focus.
Okay.
Here. Okay, I'm not really itchy. I am looking for headphones though. What do you think? You think I should get, can you chill out on the itching and help me with this here? Don't scratch him. You know, this is not how you behave in CBS. Stop scratching him. Oh no, scratches. Stop it.
He likes it.
Did I feel good?
Yes, it sure did.
It was annoying to me.
That's all I gotta get it.